So good evening, namaskar, salam alaikum. I hope everyone is doing fine. And now that we have regained after a long break, it's time to discuss AML. I know it sounds like a jargon, but it's something that has made UAE more compliant and has made sure that everything that we do from the past 2 years and going ahead will be in a very organized manner. Otherwise, there'll be a lot of penalties and a lot of problems to a lot of businessmen who do not understand what AML is all about. It is going to be a very interactive session today. It's not going to be a monologue from me, Kirti, and Himani, who are my colleagues. We're going to talk about in depth how it works, what happens, what is, whom it applies to, what happened with this change in gold and precious metals, some interesting case studies. But I would love if you all can write in the chat box about what you are looking from the session so that it'll help us drive the session along. And we'll be more than happy to answer all your questions at the end of the webinar. Thank you once again for joining with us today. I really want to thank FintEdu for co-organizing this session because they always believe in spreading great awareness on accounting, on finance, on webinars, which makes UAE compliant. And they have always been talking about business related topic, and including today's webinar where they helped us reach out to their community as well. So really thank FintEdu team. If you guys are here, thank you so much for joining. So before we get into AML, we get into gold and precious metal and the applicability, I just want to talk about what we as MICS stand for. We believe in mastery in management. We believe in impact, innovation, and integrity. We believe in being compliant, communicate to people and our network, and always make sure that there is a structure and that is sustainable structure. It doesn't happen without a sustainable structure, and that is what we at MICS believe in. Before I deep dive, I would want to just take a minute to take you through why UAE is so focused about the AML compliances. And if I can have the next slide, it focuses on three major aspects. The first is that ever since it has got out from the FATF grey list, it has focused on becoming compliant, and also it has spoken on becoming a global recognized credible jurisdiction. It was a tax haven earlier, but now it has become a future ready company, country, and a compliant jurisdiction which globally people are chasing. And I was in London and Singapore a week back, and that trip made me realize that even if we have uncertainties in this jurisdiction, the structures are not going anywhere. People still eye this jurisdiction as strong as it was earlier. Of course, there are some thoughts in terms of how and when it will move on, but luckily everything is fine, and I hope everyone at your home is also fine. So moving ahead, Himani, I'll talk about this grey list and all that fines that has happened over last 2-3 years, where over 150 million dirhams of fine were attracted over thousands of companies, and we help few clients across this. So I just want to know from you, in a very simple layman language, what is AML, to who it applies, and why it is important.
AML, as a basic layman language, anti-money laundering. First of all, I want to ask you a simple question. If you would like to drink a glass of water, at first glance, it will look very clean and clear. But what about the impurities in it? It will be clear only through a water purifier. AML works like a water purifier and a filter to you and the financial system. It has certain impurities as an illegal money that has been entered by the criminals into our financial system, and that can be cleared through this AML only. AML includes all the important obligations and regulations that are important to eliminate the such illegal activity. Whenever money comes into the system, AML asks three basic questions: where the money has come from, who is responsible for this transaction, and actually the transaction means business or not. All these compliance are important in AML to make it more liable. AML does not only include money laundering, it also includes combating financing of terrorism and counter proliferation financing. Together, they make UAE as a national security and economic system stronger. AML is just not a compliance. Overall, it is a protection. And to whom AML is protecting? Now, the next question: who to whom AML applies? It is the DNFBs, financial institutions, virtual asset service providers, and NPOs. What are DNFBPs? Designated non financial businesses and professions. Criminals are always using these kind of businesses to enter into the financial system. They make their illegitimate money legal through these businesses, like real estate brokers, dealers in precious metal and stones, and other financial institutions, and of course, commercial gaming, which is a new sector coming up in AML. Why these DNFBPs are included? Because they are including high value asset transactions. They are including client money and documentation, which makes it easier for criminals to add their finance and their illegitimate money in the financial system.
So if I have to be, straight up, lot of these companies that we know are misusing these sectors, and that is why I think EML has taken a lot of shape in terms of making sure that everyone remains compliant. So earlier people used to know only that few entities are using or probably are applicable for AML, but the list goes on, including us, right? We are in the trap of AML, and I have seen what happens to clients from commercial gaming that you mentioned, or brokerage or consulting, even those things. But thank you so much for letting us know where it applies. And UAE says no tolerance for dirty gold, right? I mean, I was there at Gold Souk, and I saw there was a whisper around people getting aware about AML, right? I have been in UAE for just over 4 years, and I have seen that from no compliance talks to everywhere now, people talking about compliances, whether it is taxes, whether it is AML, and it is important to know what happened in Gold Souk, in that mystery shopping that happened, inspection. And I think Katie, I'll pull you along to let us know what exactly happened there, why people have got so aware, and what did the FIU report say, the strategic report had to say, if you can make us understand on all those lines.
Let me start with our favorite destination, Gulsuk. For tourists, it's an attraction. For residents, it's a trusted place to buy gold. Like us, we usually buy gold from Gulsuk. And for UAE economy, it is a symbol of Dubai's position as a global trading hub. Gold has always been associated with trust, value, and legacy. Family buy it for security, traders uses it as a global commodity, and economies treat it as a symbol of stability. So when UAE Ministry of Economy and Tourism visited Gold, the message was very bold and clear. The UAE wants gold trade to remain strong, but at the same time they want that to be remain clean and clear. Earlier, when a customer entered a gold shop, the questions were very basic and general. What is the rate today? What will be the making charges? What is the purity of gold, 22 carat or 24 carat? But now When a heavy transaction, when a high value transaction takes place, business needs to ask some questions to the customer. Yes, business will ask basic questions like who the customer is, where is the money coming from, does this transaction make sense? Because today, purity of gold is not just judged by its carat, but the transparency behind the transaction. And this is exactly what inspection was about, which brings us to the next slide. What happened during the Gold Souk AML inspection? So, as we can see, Ron, can we please go to the previous slide? Previous. Yeah, thank you. So, our officer, Mr. Abdullah bin Tuk Al Mari, representing UAE Ministry of Economy and Tourism, visited Gold Souk on 13th May 2026. And you will be surprised to know that they were not just focusing on the AML policies if merchants have, but they were more into are they actually complying to those policies which they have in their hand. So, in a busy place like Gold Souk, when a customer makes a high value transactions, regulators, means the authorities, wants to know is proper KYC done? Was the customer screened? Are the transaction records properly maintained? And the questions goes on and on basis on the scenarios. So the inspection was focused on transparency, procedural efficiency, and direct conversations were also made with the merchants. Of course, some small merchants, with few larger player of the sector. And this brings us to the next question: what reforms are being introduced to make gold sector transparent and clear? So, yeah, so coming towards the reforms and initiatives, we all know Dubai has always been known for its speed, trust, and trade, and it's a tourist place. Imagine a gold trader receiving gold from a supplier. The supplier is old, relationship is quite good, even the profit is very good. So he can't say no to the transaction. But what if it turns out to a suspicious transaction at a later stage? The questions will not be was the gold pure or not, isn't it? The question will move around. Did you check the compliances? Did you check the KYC? Have you done all the screenings? Have you checked the background? So, this is exactly what these reforms are being brought in. Initiatives like UAE Gold Delivery Standard, Gold Trader Database, Federal Gold Trading Platform, then setting up of a committee for bullion trade market. All these are not just formalities. They are being introduced to protect Dubai's gold market from becoming a route for suspicious money. Or if you have noticed, all these are moving towards a single goal, that is a traceability. Because going forward, trust will not be based on relationship. I may have a good relationship with someone from past 10 years, but that does not suffice my documents. I should have those documents in hand that will prove the background check of the person. So, and you might be thinking that all of a sudden, why you is focusing so much on this particular sector or AML, right? Rona, can we please go to the next slide? So these reforms are not being introduced in isolation. They are backed by what UAE Financial Intelligence Unit has already observed in precious metals and stone sector. They have observed the patterns, the gaps, and the red flags. And basis on that, they have issued one report. This is the strategic analysis report in September 25. Now, some of might be thinking that maybe this is related to particular sector, that is precious metals and stones. So that is issued or published to them only. So let me clear this out. This has been issued to every DNFBP who is registered with the authority. If you want to check, then you can log in over the portal of AML and you will find in the inbox tab. So let's quickly take a glimpse over this report in detail, what it was for and what were the results of this report. So let me start with some good numbers. As you can see, the report says that there was around 959 billion dirham trade from gold sector itself in 2024. which makes UAE as the second largest global hub after surpassing UK, comprising 20 to 30% market stake, which is a massive number. And of course, a good number comes with a good responsibility too. And also, gold has some features which can be misutilized. Although we know that gold has always been used as security by families, but because it carries high value, it's easy to sell, easy to transfer. And one important feature, like if refined, it's very difficult to trace the gold. All these feature together sum up with one conclusion that is given by NRA, National Risk Assessment, which says that all these features together make up gold sector, I can say precious metals and stone sector as medium to high risk category. So they have categorized this particular sector to medium and high risk. And Rona, can we please go to the next slide? Okay, so if we look at more numbers, UAE's precious metals and stones represent almost 32% of UAE trade, foreign trade, which is also another good number. And if we see, there are quite massive growth in imports, exports, and re-exports. Right, because for Dubai, gold is not just jewelry, it is trade, tourism, export, and reputation. So, this sector being medium to high risk, we have some more analysis. Can we go to the next slide, please? I would say this is a slide representing two sides of a single coin. The left side is a very positive side, but on the same hand, the right side, it represents some negative part of it. If we see the left hand side, it shows a chart which depicts that from June 22 till June 25, there is a massive increase in registrations with the authority. If we see 81% increase of registrations, it simply means that 81 percentage increase has been noticed in the registration part with authority. This is just a small thing that people say, okay, we are registered, but what of about the active reporting? Are you aware that you just not need to register and you are okay? I have made the compliance and it's done and dusted. No, it's not like that. If we see on the right hand side, there is a chart which shows clear declining of active reporting, or I can say active participation of the entities. Earlier, it was about 38% entities who were actively reporting, but that has declined to 29%, even after an increase in registrations. This is just mere an example. If we see this slide, the next slide, so this also has two charts, which also shows the same thing that the after increasing also the registration, the entities are not aware what they have to do after the registration. They just think that we have done registration, we have made the compliances, it's sorted. No. There are some reports. One report, I can say STR, suspicious transaction report. So if we see, there were around just 3% of all registered sector which have submitted this report. And even then, in these 3% also, 79% of all reports are from just 10 DPMS, which again proves that all of us are knowing AML, that yeah, AML exists, but the compliance part we are lacking. Can we please go to the next slide? This is my most favorite part. Not being the penalties or the sanctions or the fines or the suspensions, but reason is this shows that even authorities are also noticing. They are not just ignoring it. They are putting fines, they are putting penalties. And if we see the figures of penalties, it's around 146 million penalties. And it's not something which we are saying or the published figure, it's given by the authority themselves in the report, which again also shows that there is lack of compliance existed. And if we see the suspensions, fines, total sanctions, they might be, solved at a later stage, but all these affect reputation of the entity. If a sanction is imposed, of course, market will get to know and your reputation will be at a stake. From this penalty, I just reminded one of our case which has happened to us. So one of our client came with her friend. We met her. We were like, okay, let's meet her. So the client's friend was having a notice in her hand, and that notice was of 1 million dirham penalty. Even we were surprised that it's a huge amount for a small entity. So we looked at the things, we tried to solve the matter, and almost after 2 months of hassle, we finally got the penalty waiver. The moral of the story is the client was actually compliant. They have made all the compliance, the KYCs, everything was done, but they were not having in hand. They were not maintaining the documents. They were doing KYC, but not maintaining proper folder. So this is a very small thing, but the amount of penalties can be very huge. So I have specifically taken these two cases. The reason behind taking these two cases is very simple. I just want to depict one clear message that even if you are doing a single short non-compliance, the penalty can be huge in thousands. If you can see case one, so the non-compliance was just that the entity was not registered with the authority within the time frame. Like they just delayed the AML registration. They registered, but they just delayed. So they got USD 36,000 penalty, and that was settled at a lower amount. That's not an issue. But if you convert the same into dirhams, it's around 132,000 dirhams, which is a huge amount for just delaying in registration. So you can imagine that how impactful it is if we are not even just registering with authorities in time. It will be an impactful thing for your reputation. And of course, on a compliance part, you will be having a non-compliance. That's all from my side. And if anyone wants to know more about these cases, the penalties, we have provided the link as well. So you can visit the link and you can see the penalties and the reasons and more about the cases.
Kirti, I would not let you go so easily. There is one interesting question from Divya, and I would want to,
Oh.
spend a couple of minutes on what exactly happened in that gold souk inspection. To little deep down, what kind of, checks were there, what happened to people, what documents were asked, because Shipra's next question is list. So Shipra and Divya, thank you for asking the question. And before Kirti answers, let me tell you, even the sourcing of gold is vetted. You have to know the miners, you have to check the background of the companies that you're working with. There is a specific due diligence that you have to do. And if there is anything fishy, you need to do an enhanced due diligence as well. So all of this, yes, it is there. Again, if you ask me whether it is, how will they get to know? If they send a letter to you with a penalty, that's how, or probably a scrutiny notice, you will get to know, right? But this is all mandatory, enforceable by law, and you will have to do it no matter what. So source to source also becomes important, and that is why I always believe that there is no cost, and we should not let the compliance go off easily. I'll come to question of I think Jamie of the NBT banker in a time, but if you can talk about a little more detail of the gold souk incident because that is very, very critical.
So if I start with the inspection in little more detail, so the basic thing that the officer started with asking the documents. Let's say the officer visited one shop, a small merchant. The questions were to show the KYC, to show the AML policies. The merchant shows that, okay, these are my policies, these are the KYC I have got from the customers. They ask, have you done AML training? The answer was, yeah, I have done. Like, I have conducted this as the proof. They showed it. He was the supplier, the merchant was thinking that I have the documents. Is it fine? The officer will move ahead. But the officer was very smart. What he did, he asked that you done AML training, right? And the name of the people also mentioned in the email training document. He picked up a random person from his team and asked some questions, some basic questions. Do you know what the AML is? And that person was completely blank. Now imagine this situation. If you were in his place, you will be like surprised and shocked at the same time that the officer don't just need the AML policies from you. They really want that whatever is written in your policy, whatever are the compliances, they want you to follow in your day-to-day business. And they were, started digging down all those things. But the main motive behind this inspection was not to impose any penalties or sanctions. Even they also want to know the operational difficulties which merchants or the traders are facing. So this was a combined, you can say, a combined thing, which was kind of initiative from the authority side. And I'm saying you with my experience with the clients we are dealing, regular inspections also happens like on yearly basis. So in that inspection also now they are digging more and more. They are not just satisfying with the documents you prove to them. They are asking you much more documents beyond the transaction. So the logic and the moral of the story or the motto of this inspection was very simple, that you don't just need to go and run behind your profit or the transaction. You have to clearly check the background of the transaction, whole supply chain of the transaction, like from where it is coming, to whom it is going, and even if you are a supplier or a recipient in the trading company, I'm saying. So for both of them, the compliance is same. It's not that if I'm a trader, I'm just trading the gold, so I don't need to comply with the AML law. It's not like that. It is applicable to full sector.
Thank you, Kirti. I think Divya is bang on. Absolutely, people keep policies, maybe take even one training because we are cutting the cost at every corner here, but they don't have any knowledge about AML. Let me just give you in a very layman language. If I run a consulting firm and I am onboarding a client, I have to do his KYC. I have to check his, the source of money that he's given me. And if there is cash involved, even more, liabilities come in. So we need to keep checking all of that. And it is very critical for us to make sure that it is compliant because in one of the cases, I'm compliance officers to many of these companies. In one of the cases, officers went to even ask about the enhanced due diligence reports. What happened? How the client contacted you? Was it through a third party? If there was a third party involved, what happened with them? Did you check the third party? The source of money, everything matters at the end of the day. And if at that very moment you fail to answer, the next thing you know is next 15 days, you have a notice with a million dirhams, 2 million dirhams, 5 million dirhams of penalty, right? And then you have to keep replying to those notices. So if you ask me, every client you onboard, please make sure you have a proper file from basic KYC to onboarding engagement letter signings to whatever you can do properly. Please make sure that is done. And if possible, please every 6 months, if not 3 months, take regular trainings on the things because it is very, very critical. And just touching very slightly on Jamie's point, cash transactions are allowed. There is absolutely no restriction in cash transactions, whether it is 55,000 or above. The only thing that is needed here is to check the source, to report it, and to make sure that all of this is made very, very clear to the even the reports as well as the clients that boss, because you're giving me check, these are all things I have to do when I'm onboarding you, and we have to address all of that, right? Red flags to the regulators: if your KYC is incomplete, if you do not know about the source, all of these are red flags. And of course there are more red flags that can come in when you're dealing with gold traders, because we'll talk about a very interesting case at the end, how suspicion or a normal running company does some money laundering. So we'll talk about that in a little detail, but yes, it is very, very important. And I think the chat box is getting full. But before answering all those questions, I get back to Himani. Himani, we've understood about what AML is, how the gold and precious metals. There was an inspection and run through what the strategic report shows and how UAE has become compliant. But addressing the red flag query, what to do and what not to do, right? Because everyone knows we have to keep AML policy, we have to keep trainings, but what not to do? in our running businesses, what are those small things that we need to take care of if we have to strengthen our AML compliances? What are those things that are more important?
Sure, Prateek sir. I'll now deep dig down to the AML compliances that are necessary for being compliant under AML. Let's walk through the flow chart that involves in the GoML registration. Though it is just not a documentation that needs to be completed, it is a complete ongoing screening process involving a whole lot of steps. The first steps goes with GoML registration on the GoML portal, along with appointment of compliance officer. He's the officer who looks over the obligations, implications of all the regularities under AML. He's the one who looks whether the records are maintained properly, whether screenings are done properly, whether STRs, SARs have been reported timely or not. AML officer then makes the enterprise wide risk assessment policy. This is the assessment that is required to be done for the entire risk involved in the business. It involves the question that what the business is doing with it, what are the transactions they are dealing with, what type of transactions, and what are the customers we are dealing with. Are they high risk customers? Are they PEP customers? Are they our high risk jurisdiction customers? This entire assessment is important to provide us with the internal policies and procedures for the AML. These internal policies are very important part of our AML because it lays down the foundation for which we are working. Last slide, please. The next step comes about the KYC process, which includes for natural person as well as the companies. We require trade license in case of companies, and for natural persons, we require passports or Emirates ID, which undergoes screening, which is a critical part. This screening is against UNSC consolidated list and UAE local terrorist list. If any kind of match is found, the customer need to be rejected, the transaction need to be stopped immediately, which results in fund freeze. In any case, the funds have been involved, the funds need to be freezed and a fund freeze report need to be reported. However,
So,
if there is
Himani,
no, yes,
just to stop you here, because I'll tell you an interesting story, and this is for everyone in the room. We are chasing, like a lot of people have written, we are doing the compliances as a tick box. But when a transaction comes in and we know that we are making 500,000 dirhams, no one cares about deleting the transaction. They find a loophole. And I've had a client whom I've said, no, return the money back. And that is why, and this is to every question that is there in the chat box as well, make sure that this is one of the biggest things that you take care. If there is a transaction and if your AML officer have told you not to do it, this is a red flag for you as a company, because if you do the transaction just for earning that 500,000 dirhams, you will have to go through severe penalties. And of course, a lot of other things can happen if the amount grows in. And trust me, it's very easy to not do the compliance. But if you're caught, all your hard work of 4, 5 years or maybe decades will just get ruined. So I know it is good to make money, but not at the cost of all of these compliances. Yes, Himani, over to you.
thank you so much, sir. If there is no match, then you need to continue with the risk profiling. Under risk profiling, we need to assess whether the customer is under low risk, medium risk, or high risk. Next slide, please. Under low or medium risk, we can continue with the transaction as normal. However, under high risk, what is to be done? Enhanced due diligence, that is called EDD. You must have heard this term a lot of many times. But what it involves source of fund. We need to obtain source of fund from our client. We need to ensure where the funds are coming from. Second, we need to ensure that the payment is made through the client's own account. It should not be a third party. Third, we need to seek senior management approval before onboarding such kind of a customer. Ongoing monitoring is not a single time process. It has to be done continuously so that in any case or suspicion arised, we can report to the portal, and which is very important part. Repeat the process again, and the continuous monitoring is important. Once again, I would like to say that records are need to be maintained. Unless and until the documents are maintained, it cannot be proven that they have been made. Records need to be maintained minimum for 5 years to stay compliant.
Thank you so much, Shimani. Kirti, anything that you would love to add here in terms of what is important, what not to do, any red flags that you have seen?
Yeah, sure, sir. Why not? There are multiple cases. I'm just thinking what to pick and what to leave because there are a lot of interesting cases that has came to us. If I just continue with what you said, that I remember we have say no to one client that you don't need to do this transaction because this is quite risky for you. even though even though we know that there are some loopholes in the law, there are some things which we can do as per the law to be compliant also, and at the same time to do the transaction also, but still there are some red flags which we need to pick up and we need to take action. So if I take an example, I think all people are aware in the room that we have to do screenings of the customers. So while doing screening, it's just not mere compliance that, okay, you just put the details in the software and you just got the screenings, it's fine, and you just kept in the folder. No, it's not like that. You have to go to the screening report in detail. You will go by each section. You will see that, okay, is there any red flag? Red flag means that any kind of what to say, any kind of suspicious thing which software is given, any partial name match. Someone was asking in the chat that how to identify partial name match. So there is one authority, EOCN, to whom we have to do the subscription. Even this is also part of compliance as per the authority. So once you subscribe to that, you will receive an updated list of the terrorists, of the companies who have made the suspicious things, who are involved in frauds and terrorist activities, all these things. So there is a particular list. The list is of individuals and companies both. So while going through the screening report, you need to see, are there any partial name matches? If you found that, yeah, software is saying that, yeah, there is something suspicious about this person, then you have to do the Google searches. So it's not just having a downloaded report from the software as a compliance. You have to go beyond the compliance. You have to see over the Google whether the name is 100% matching, or it's just sometimes the surname is matching. So these are little things which can create a huge impact. If I have to take another example, then I came across one transaction where the person is having, the client is having two passport. So the client was very smart, I must say, because there is some blacklist, gray list, and a normal list of FATF. So client was having one passport from the gray list and one was from UK. He was playing smart with us. He just provided us with a UK passport. But our software is also very smart, smarter than him. I don't know how the software recognizes his dual passport. So we asked him that, bro, you have dual passport. You should have told us before. So these all things are very small, but yes, these all things you have to keep in mind to stay compliant. This is just a small example which I just mentioned. And there are a lot of transaction, a lot of cases we handle in day-to-day life, which, are very small but very critical also. That's all from my side, Pratik sir.
Thank you so much, Kirti. I think just to add here, a lot of people ask when we are in the room that can we do transactions with PEP, high risk clients? You can absolutely do it if your diligence is clear. If your EDD is clear, if there is no other issues, because he is a high risk client, no one stops you from doing a
Right.
transaction. Either 500,000 or 500 million dirhams, doesn't matter. All you need to make sure is all your work is done and all your compliances are met. Yeah, definitely, Sami will give you the name of the software as well. So, one thing which interestingly Kirti has raised, a lot of people have dual passports, nationalities. So it's very critical to be very clear what questions to be asked. Till that level, you need to make sure that everything is done. So, you know, we have heard about what is important to do, what are the step-by-step requirements that people have to take care, of course, the policies and the trainings. But Kirti,
Mm.
see, at the end of the day, I'm a layman, right? And there is someone who's written also that he runs a company in a free zone, and there is two parties, and he's making sure that they get, I think, some regarding acting as an intermediary for a gold trade and connecting buyers and sellers. So
Mm.
Harish ji, for your information, you come under AML, right? That is for sure. Whether it is free zone, mainland, doesn't matter. You are under. There is no minimum threshold also. AML has no minimum threshold like VAT or corporate tax. AML has nothing to do with free zone or mainland. AML only cares about the applicability list that we talked about. We will just, in after the practical example, we'll talk about the list again, and I'll touch base who are covered, who are not covered. But yeah, so for partial match also, whether the report has to be filed or not, 100% it has to be filed. There is no doubt about it, right? As I said, transaction, no problem, but you'll have to report it. So, Kirti, over to you for very practical. Can you give us practical examples, and case laws where what happened in that case when there was a probably that people were dealing with AML notices, or what red flags were identified by the authorities?
Uh, okay. So the case study or the practical example which I would like to take is one of our client. I will not take the name of the client. So the client came to one referral contract. Like, of course, it's very common here, referral agreement. So the client was just acting as an intermediary, and they were about to receive commission from both the parties as a referral amount. Okay, let me first complete my example, then we'll shift to this case study. So the client was not having any formal agreement of the referral, neither having KYC document. They were just thinking that why we should have all those KYC document. We are just having an intermediary, and we are just receiving the amount of just letting people know each other. This is not covers under AML. So AML is not just a single room where if you are into the room, you will have to comply. It's a whole building, if I have to say in a very simple term. So a company which is also acting as an intermediary will also have to comply with the laws, because they are also ultimately connecting to a chain which like either be a real estate or a precious metals and stone or the auditors or the lawyers. So if you're falling in any of the chain, you have to comply with the AML laws and regulation. And it's not just that you can skip this law. Ronak, can we please go to the previous slide? Yeah, next slide, please. I would rather choose Himani to explain this case study. Himani, can you please explain this interesting case study?
Sure, Katie. Ronak, last slide, please. Let me move you through this case study, which is Company A, which has been registered under electronic trading. It looks very clear and normal business activity. However, the actual activity behind the scenes is completely different. This company was related to multiple individuals who were entering in UAE with large amount of cash declarations. That's fine, cash declaration is not wrong. But for what purpose this cash has been used? It has been used for gold purchase. Now you'll be thinking, why gold purchase? The question now arises, an electronic company dealing in gold purchase, where there is the link, that's where AML comes in. They need to find now questions like, where are the bank deposits? Are there any imports or exports? Are there any electronic activity being done, electronic goods being purchased or not? But there is no such kind of trail found in such situation. This is where the key red flags arouse. That is, there is a mismatch in the business activity, cash transactions, high declarations, multiple individuals in the name of the company, they are purchasing gold. And this gold has been transferred internationally without any confusion being legal. So this is the strong suspicion and conclusion that has been drawn that company is acting as a front using these money mules and entering into the financial business of our country. This is where AML protects our DNF BPs. by acting as a shield. And this shield protects you from such kind of a fraud. AML asks every time a question, and this question need to be answered to be protected against such fraud.
Perfect, guys. Thank you so much.